That's the moment the Party for Socialism and Liberation says was inaudible in the critical incident video showing the police shooting that killed Adam Sykes.
Today we tell Mike Brown and the ruling class that we won't be divided. We've seen these tricks before. Immigrants are not dangerous. Capitalism is.
Welcome to Naptown People's Radio, a weekly podcast brought to you by the Indianapolis branch of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm your host, Dani Abdullah, and I'm joined by my comrade and co-host,
Derek Ford.
We're here to guide you through the pressing issues facing Indianapolis from the perspective of our people, not our oppressors. And as organizers involved in these issues, we're not just talking about the news, we're making it happen. Happy Women's History Month! Today is our third episode in celebration of Women's History Month, and Derek and I are digging back into who our women revolutionary heroes are. I think this is going to be as good of a conversation as it was last week, so I'm excited for it. And we're also going to be getting into, our dispatches from Behind the Wire segment today. So we're going to be hearing from Jose Ortiz, who is an inmate at Miami Correctional Facility, and he's going to be talking to us about the horrendous and routine medical neglect that he and his fellow inmates, including ICE detainees, face on a daily basis. Our hope for this episode, really every episode, but, especially while we're celebrating Women's History Month and we are talking about some of the most oppressed people in our country, which is, inmates. We are really hoping that, this discussion of revolutionary and international women shedding light on what's happening to ICE detainees as well as inmates in general should serve to inspire the growing struggles of American people and heighten listeners' consciousness of the need for militant, united front campaigns around, the burning demands of the day, which is against monopoly oppression, against war, against fascism, against all the isms, really. And that, you not only listen to today's discussion, but you go and you spread the word. I sound like I was at church, but you spread the word, right? Like you talk about what we were talking about, what you learned today. We have a newer comrade Comrade Philip. Shout out to Philip, who I love having conversations with Philip about what he heard on Naptown People's Radio and what he got from it. And, it's Naptown People's Radio is not just here for people to listen to, but it's also to act upon, what we're discussing and how can you implement it into your life, So before we get into the segments, we're going to hear from Derek in the Naptown Breakdown. So what's on deck this week, Derek?
Well, first I want to say, by any means necessary. So if, I always say, look at the Mormons, they are out there day in, day out, rain, sleet, snow, hail, spreading their word, right?
They are.
So I was like, we should be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why
there's
not?
a reason why they're growing and we're, they leave no tactic unturned. So I did want to just, because I actually got that the other day. I said something about spreading the word. I meant the message, yeah. And somebody, made that, and I was like, yeah, okay, but whatever, So two things. Earlier this month, Governor Mike Braun signed Indiana House Bill 1343 into law, which gives him the ability to command a police force that answers directly to him through our National Guard. This force could be deployed on our streets regardless of any local official's consent, and it will officially go into effect on July 1st of this year. So again, per the bill, Braun could deploy ICE agents en masse, for example. This is not out of the realm of possibility. The governor has made, an effort to curry favor with the current administration. Now, the state of Indiana, let's just be real, does not need any additional police.
No.
Especially here in Indiana, with our constant increase in budgeting for the IMPD. The same holds for law enforcement, that pulled a minor out of a car and threatened his life on February 6th, right? 11 officers were involved in that incident. Now, in total, the officers involved have 809 use of force incidents against them. Yes.
Wow.
And we know that not thanks to the IMPD's misleadingly sort of appropriated transparency portal. We know it through the one that our comrades put together, maskoff12.com.
Right.
Where you can actually go in and see the breakdown, the racial breakdown, the gender breakdown, and everything of all these, crimes these cops committed. And so, I just want to say, like, we need real accountability to end this police terror. Obviously, the police aren't going to give us a tool to do it. So that's why we have Mask Off 12. So, go there, print out the pictures of these, thugs that are, basically terrorizing our neighborhoods, put them up, warn your neighbors.
I was going to say, put them up like a wanted poster, man. Like, absolutely.
And come here first, because we can help you print them. We can go out, distribute them with you. We'd love to. Because we need real accountability, and it starts just wherever it's got to start. And I think that's where it is. And the second related thing I wanted to touch on is the ongoing prison expansion in the state of Indiana. So a couple years ago, they proposed a new facility that would replace the current Westville Correctional Facility, as well as the notorious Indiana State Prison, which is like 20 miles away. Right?
Yeah.
So that's like at first it was $600,000, and I think it blossomed into $2.7 billion budget.
That's with a B.
B, yes, $27 billion. It's funny how that happens. The plan then was to close Westville, and also to close ISP, right, when you open this new one. But now DOC officials are walking that back, and they're saying ISP, Indiana State Prison, will remain open indefinitely, even though both are currently operating under capacity. They have available beds.
Okay.
But if you go to the DOC website, they're straight up like, we fully anticipate arrest rates to increase and incarceration rates to increase.
Oh, interesting.
And if you can just replace the word like expect to hope,
Right,
and
absolutely.
because we're the ones in power, that's not a hope. That could we are the ones who make that reality.
Absolutely.
And so basically it's expanding the number of men in particular who the state can imprison and incarcerate, and they're selling it like it's gonna be so great for inmates. They're gonna have 200 mental health beds in the mental health ward, right? And the safety of the officers, right, are completely safe. I will tell you, it's actually $1.2 billion of taxpayer money, but amongst other things, that's yet to be determined, right? So I think that when we think about this, and these can include like isolation units, super maximum. Westville was the first super maximum control complex in Indiana, and the second in the state. This is not, but it's not being talked about in the media at all.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to bring it to light. Shaka mentioned it on the last dispatches behind the wire. And so I want to bring it here really, because I think that we need to this is a place where educating in itself can raise awareness that can then galvanize people to action, because, we all know somebody who's been in prison or who's been in jail, right, for whatever reason. And we all know the reality of it. And, and especially when you dig into the history of Indiana's prisons, like if you watch the Pendleton 2 documentary, the Shaka documentary, you'll see that the real criminals are the ones with the keys, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And same for Vernon, right? Like Vernon T. Bateman, the mother of his youngest child, right, was a correctional officer, right? She got pregnant while Vernon was in prison, I want to say solitary confinement, right?
Yeah.
She had access to his food and would just like you said, right? The people, the actual criminals are the ones who are running the prison, who are running the misleaders of this country, right? Like those are the ones who should be in prison. And the idea of we plan to be able to fill these beds is that's actually terrifying. Yeah. That's terrifying. We expect or hope, as you said, right, for an increase in arrest. And it's okay, how is that going to happen? Well, it's illegal to be homeless right now, right? We got Braun out here who is, in July going to be able to just command ICE to go and arrest random people, right? We're already getting so many immigrant detainees from Chicago and just Illinois in general, right? So it is going to increase. That is their plan, right? Is for this to increase. And so this is really a time for the people who are listening, the people of Indianapolis, the people of Indiana. So like, absolutely not. This is unacceptable.
Yeah. I appreciate that and agree 100%. And, we'll get more into that a little bit. It's kind of a teaser for the dispatches from Behind the Wire. And after a short break, we'll be right back with more Naptown People's Radio. And welcome back to Naptown People's Radio. I hope you are, and I'm sure you are actually as excited as I am to hear Comrade Dani Abdullah's first women revolutionary hero that inspires her to this day. And I'm sure after we hear about her, will inspire all of us.
I hope so, right? That's a goal. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it will.
If I was a betting man, I would bet.
I feel like you are.
I would like to be, actually. So I would like someone to teach me how to gamble, but I just don't know.
I can't help you, but maybe that's
if you're any listeners out there.
Look. I feel like, so I kind of want to do like a little prelude to my person. So my revolutionary hero is Nguyễn Thị Bình, she is still alive, and she is a Vietnamese revolutionary. And kind of the prelude to that is Nguyễn Thị Bình is an Asian woman, and I am a Black woman. If you've never seen me before, I'm a Black woman. And there is this history of false division, especially in this country, against Black people and Asian people. And so, racism is really like the most powerful tool in the hands of the U.S. ruling class to keep them, to keep the multinational working class divided, right? To keep us divided. And the racist tropes that have been exploited to seemingly uplift one racial group while damning, others overall, pitting people of different backgrounds against one another rather than against our common enemy, which is that of the ruling class. The contemporary model minority myth seemingly props up Asians in the United States as having persisted and succeeded in the face of hardship, while pointing a finger at Black Americans and various immigrant groups as simply like incapable of doing the same sweeping falsities that, have proclaimed all Asians, devoid of national and cultural distinctions as like book intelligent, at the same time promoting all Black Americans as ignorant, lazy, and dangerous, which is so interesting. I was, my stepdad, that's who raised me. He is a Korean man, and he's not dumb, but like he's not book smart. Like that's not his thing. And so I remember being super young and like knowing that stereotype of Asians are so like smart and they're geniuses. And I would come home and be like, what happened here? Not that he's dumb, because he's not dumb, but like school was not his thing.
Right.
Like that just was not his thing. Whereas school was my thing. I loved school as a kid. And so
starting to make more sense to me now.
Yeah. But like that stereotype I immediately was questioning that, because what are you talking about? That was not what I was seeing in my life. And so like, when we think about the Smith Act, it is insulting towards both Asian and Black communities. It really ignores the institutionalized racism that has deeply impacted both communities, past and present. Black people today continue to suffer from decades, plural, of racial segregation, and housing, staggering rates of incarceration, underfunded schools, social programming. These cannot be divorced from centuries of slavery and decades of Jim Crow. The discrimination and hate crimes against Asians of all nationalities experienced today are rooted in the Chinese Exclusion Act, Japanese internment camps, decades of racist exploitation, and decades-long aggressions towards China and other Asian countries that fought for and won independence. The racist stereotypes and myth, making obscure an attempt to, bury the history of racist oppression and exploitation of Black and Asian communities. So in reality, this model minority myth was created in an attempt to sow division and distress with, the Black Power movement and other anti-racist movements from the 1960s and 1970s. And the model minority myth was revisited when hate crimes targeting Asian Americans increased in the summer of 2020. At some point, as Black Americans, as a source of anti-Asian racism and stronger policing, was as a solution ultimately provided harsher policing, really only served to enforce, white supremacy and disrupt both communities, And so while Black and Asian communities have, unique experiences with racism in the U.S., our struggles marry each other, from housing discrimination and anti-immigrant policies to the underfunding of our schools and rampant police brutality. White supremacy is a festering disease targeting and killing all of us. Black and Asian histories have always been intertwined, and we have been strongest when we view our struggles as intertwined as well. There is a very proud history of Afro-Asian solidarity, and feeding a powerful weapon against white supremacy, and that really demonstrates how critical that ongoing unity is. And so when Thai Binh, even though she is not Asian American, she is Asian. And I just felt the need to kind of just provide that prelude before I really got into her. But Nguyen Thai Binh, she is one of the most well-known Vietnamese women revolutionaries. She played a prominent role representing Vietnam during a period of intense U.S. Struggle and the crush against the country that meant a really expansive worldwide resistance to imperial war. And she was born in 1927. Like I said, she's still alive. Next year she'll be 100. God willing. Hopefully she's gonna make it there. I hope she is, because I would love for her to live until she's 150, because I'd need to meet her one day. But she was born in 1927 when Vietnam was under French occupation. And, a small vector of Vietnamese people were granted access to French education programs, and the local school systems were pretty much abolished, right? So 90% of the population was limited, had little to no access to education. And land became concentrated in the hands of a few, and the rich grew richer as the poor continued to struggle, right? Struggled to survive, struggled to do anything, really, right? So the colonial agenda to reach Vietnamese society met significant resistance, even from the relatively privileged middle class, which that is where Nguyen Thai Binh is from, is kind of the more privileged class within Vietnam. Very educated and very intelligent, which later on that was used against her, and I'll probably get into that. But this actually further radicalized and helped her be more committed to the anti-colonial struggle. So Nguyen Thai Binh, she was born of a family that had a strong commitment to national independence, and she and her family joined Viet Minh, a united front of leftists and national independence. And she and her, and she helped lead the Vietnamese Communist Party. So Binh, she really threw herself into revolutionary work by the beginning of it was her being a teacher and doing underground campaigns against illiteracy. But just before the revolution of 1945, she was organized with other Viet Minh comrades into units, right? So after years of building underground, strengthening their forces, and waiting for the opportune time, the Viet Minh declared independence from all colonial rule in August of 1945. And this was with an outpouring of mass support. Nguyen Thai Binh, she said, the entire population rose up at that time. All segments of the population should have as they should have, against the French colonial in the list, from the intellectuals to the bourgeois nationalists to the peasants and the workers. Naturally, everyone was standing up against the invaders, the dominators, right? So showing, like, I think sometimes about, people in Iran, like in their revolution, right? It was really like the people wanting to run their own country, right? Like that is what it comes down to. The people wanting to run their own country, not wanting imperialists running their country, it should not be a hot take.
Right. I mean, that's basically why, I don't like the distinction between, there were Iraqi military casualties and Iraqi civilian casualties. Like, they're all civilians.
Absolutely.
They're just trying to get the foreign occupiers out,
Absolutely. And so, from that moment on for Ben, she participated in many different fronts of struggle, and she officially joined the Vietnamese Communist Party later on in 1948. So the re-invasion by the French in 1946 led to the formation of guerrilla forces in which 980,000 Vietnamese women participated during this time of open struggle. And Ben, she came into contact with English officers and noted that, quote, "These officers did not understand anything of the situation in our country. They were interested in other things, not in helping us.
Get out."
Rather, they were seeking pleasure. And very soon we saw that the Allies were precisely the people who were helping the French to come back, right? And so, like, this moment in her long history of struggle and resistance, really demonstrates the entanglement of imperialism, violence, and patriarchal violence, as well as the necessity for the anti-imperial struggle to be anti-patriarchal in its orientation and its character, right? And so the French, they did imprison Nguyễn Thị Bình for, her revolutionary activity between 1951 and 1953. Her unbreaking revolutionary commitment transformed prison into simply another arena to fight French colonial rule. In between sessions of torture and interrogation, she drove into political education, which reminds me of Shake Shakur. She really worked to raise the consciousness and organize her fellow inmates. She said, like, when she was in prison, she recounted that there were hundreds and hundreds of women who were with her who did not even know why they were there. And they would ask, what have we done? We don't even know what we've done. Why are we here? But when they left, they knew, and they left as patriots. Now, after her release in 1953, Ben immediately rejoined the struggle. Of course she did. And the Viet Minh defeated the French colonial forces at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, which is in 1954. But imperial forces, led by the U.S., shocker, had no intention of allowing Vietnamese society, split into, did not want them to gain their independence, right? And so the United States then tried to split Vietnam, and the government installed a new regime in the South, which was headed by puppet Ngo Dinh Diem, right? And Ben continued her revolutionary ways, even in the face of massive repression characterized by the Diem years from 1954 until 1963. And she led many revolutionaries, which, she was unfortunately, she was forced underground, and she lived, a really large majority of her life away from her family, away from her children. And this was in an attempt to protect them. And she endured many years on the run. And, that's one of the other reasons why I really, really admire her, because, as she was a revolutionary woman, but she was also a mother, and she knew sacrificing time with her children was going to get them their freedom, And as a mom, there are definitely days where I've days, weeks, where I'm like, I see comrades more than I see my kids. But that's because that's what the struggle is calling for. And I'm not underground, I am nowhere in the same playing field as Nguyen Thi Binh. But, just like, it is a really good reminder for me as a mother to like, it's worth it. Like these sacrifices are worth it in the end because I am fighting for the liberation of my children, and not just my children, but like other children in the party, other children who I've never met before, children who are not even alive yet. I'm fighting for their liberation as well. So like whenever I think about, how maybe I'm tired I am, or like I kind of just want to go home and hang out with my kids. And of course there's a balance there, but I do think about Nguyen Thi Binh, and she was underground and she was away from her children for years. And it paid off, right? Like it paid off in the end, as it always does, because the people will always win. And Binh, she later became the first female foreign minister of Vietnam, and she was appointed to represent a national front for the liberation of South Vietnam at the Paris peace talks, and that was from 1969 to 1973. And from 1976 to 87, she held the position of Ministry of Education, and from 92 until 2002, she served 2 terms as the Vice President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. And so rather than retiring in her later years, she became a leader of the Association of Victims of Agent Orange, which is a campaign against the United States and Monsanto for their role in ongoing biochemical warfare on the Vietnamese people. And, during these years, she like made all of these attempts to really uplift and continue to uplift the women of Vietnam. And there were so many attempts to fashion her as an exception to women's participation in the struggle. The most prominent stereotype of Vietnamese women was of, uneducated, disheveled, fearful, deceitful, dirty women. And Nguyen Thi Binh's confidence, really like disoriented people, well, it seems weird to me because I don't know, not racist, but she really disoriented people because she's like super intelligent and she speaks French and she's like amazing. And so like Western press really would like kind of felt like she was like captivating and elegant, and like her elegance and like full like fluently French, right? And her confidence, assurity is like what really like spoke to the people, which is kind of like a catch-22 a little bit. But like her information on her personal life and like who she was really like shocked people. Especially because when they learned that like, wow, she gave up time with her children for this educated, elegant, right? That was the word that they would use about her all the time. This confident, educated, elegant woman sacrificed a life with her children for revolution. And in fact, there's a long history of women's resistance and Vietnamese liberation struggles with records of women's leadership dating back centuries, right? Nguyen Thi Binh is not the first, and she's not the last either. Binh was one of many women to struggle and lead resistance activities throughout the liberation movement of the 20th century. And with her life and her actions, her words, they demonstrate what the Western media like refused to acknowledge, which was her full commitment to revolutionary struggle and the organization that led to Vietnamese people to be liberated. Her commitment required submitting to an organizational strategy and a willingness to carry out that strategy, and she sacrificed time with her children to do that. Like many revolutionary women and in many histories, not just in Vietnam, the many histories of struggle, to build a future with no children who live under colonial rule, right? And she sacrificed a life of relative comfort, 2 years of underground living, combat, imprisonment, so that no Vietnamese people, children, women, men, whoever, would suffer the violence of poverty and colonial oppression. So yeah, she is one of my revolutionary heroes.
It's easy to see why.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's remarkable. And you are right that this is the very fact that, like, if it was to be like, who's your favorite revolutionary hero? Most people immediately would come to mind would be men, right? Because that's the history that, not that the revolutionaries have written, right? But that we get just, so, the very fact that like, we can target this and bring it out is precisely to, go and help find and uncover, but all the ones who, didn't want to be named, nobody does, right?
Yeah.
No real revolutionary does it for themselves, right?
Absolutely.
They do it for the people.
Absolutely.
Which we were talking about in the last episode, Marx would have hated his
Yeah.
statue. And it was how I always feel like, two ways about when people like sabotage, like, vandalize it. I'm always like, well, it is ugly as hell, but also you're a reactionary, so you can't do it.
Exactly.
But yeah. No, thank you so much, Dani. And it also got me thinking about, just the sort of like the gender roles that we have in the United States, the conception of motherhood, right? That we have in the United States, at least the dominant one, and how that it is like, it's based on, of course, the history of the nuclear family where the father is working, right?
Yeah.
And that's why Black people are poor, is because their fathers are in jail for bad decisions, et cetera. That racist culture of poverty trope. And so the person that I picked today was Queen Mother Audley More.
Okay. That's a great choice.
Eloise Moore. And I was motivated to do this by, Comrade Haki Kweli Shakur.
Yeah.
Just talking about the formation of the Republic of New Africa and also in Liberation School previously, we were doing short clips of former Communist Party USA members. And I remember proposing this one from Audley Moore and just like, there was some like, yeah, let's do it. That, she has a very complicated, history, which makes sense. Which makes sense because she was born in 1898 and passed away to the ancestors on May 2nd, 1997. So 1898 to 1997. So she was 98 years old. So that's an entire century of the Black liberation struggle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So she was born in New Iberia.
Okay.
New Orleans.
Okay. Yeah.
In, poverty, Jim Crow rule, and was, in terms of her political involvement, so her mother died when she was young, and her political leanings initially were towards sort of Garveyism, right?
Okay. Yeah. No, that
Marcus
makes sense.
Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And interestingly, she would return to that, but in a very interesting way later on in her life. So I think that, the reason why I chose her is because, like, looking more into her, it's like, wow, she is really encapsulates and witnessed every iteration of the Black liberation struggle, the women's liberation struggle, the social, the workers' liberation struggle for 100 years in this country, and also traveled around the world too. What it would be like, in one of her last interviews, and it was a lengthy one, she's talking about her 70-year organizing career in the global struggle. I know. And she's like, she's talking about fighting for the rights and dignity of Black women. And, of course, this is like for scholars. So it's like, tend to reject white supremacy and also interrogate the traditions that you're looking at, through this is, for academia, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not good. Just a spoiler alert.
Professor Ford?
Yes, I will be the first one to say that. Thank you. And that is based on my lived experience and my analysis of it and many others. So she was brought up in institutionalized racial codes, disenfranchisement. Her father was a victim of racial violence. And so the death of both parents left her to care for her two younger sisters, Eloise and Larita. White supremacy was intractable after World War II. So the economic boom afterwards was obviously shared by some, but not by all.
Yeah.
And it was strided along, racial lines. But by that time, she had joined the Communist Party of the United States of America.
Okay.
And that was a result of basically taking Garvey's platform of, independence, self-reliance, self-defense, right? And then, but they gave it a more coherent and framework, and one that informed strategy and tactics. So like Claudia Jones, I believe, got involved in the international, the legal defense, right, of the Scottsboro boys, right? That was her entrance into the organization because she wanted to be basically wherever, the people were fighting for Black people, right?
Absolutely.
Black liberation.
Yeah.
And then at that time, of course, in 1924, and then in 1928, at the Comintern, the Communist International, with the adoption of the Black Belt thesis, it became the right of every communist in the entire world to fight for the right of self-determination, including separation of land, autonomy, secession of Black people in the United States. And so this was, was rapidly growing. So she had moved to Harlem, and that was, they were doing a lot of recruitment. And she, she quickly sort of rose to the ranks, and she really liked the party's championing of Black nationality, right? It's a nation, right? I was reading one reflection. She was she would always be I guess, Chinese people, they come from China. That's a land. Yeah. Where do Black people come from? There's no Black country. You know what I mean? She's Africa. We're Africa. Later, New Africans. Just to show how important that is. And for me, that was really damn, that's a great way to put it and think about it.
Absolutely.
And why is it that this is why is that then? Not that we can't say Black because people understand it, but we should then go a little bit further and be because it's for these reasons. And so she worked with the American Negro Labor Congress. She worked with Claudia Jones, Shirley Graham, some of the great minds.
Man, to be in a room with the three of them, that's insane.
Yeah.
Man, how amazing. Okay.
For real. Afterwards, so she said that she withdrew from the Communist Party because it had, in the 40s, right, and the 50s, it sort of walked back its line. Yeah. And that's when, Claudia Jones and Harry Haywood were trying to intervene. Yep. And that's when, Haywood left the party. But she actually didn't leave until later. So there's some, whatever. But not what the strategy of organization and the politics of organization stuck with her. Yeah. Because the democratic centralism, which, basically means that when we come into a meeting as an organization, it's total it's democracy. And I can, say, well, I think Dani's point is, correct, but I would add this. Yeah. And Dani could say, I think Derek, everything he just said is nonsense. And this is why, right? And
not that that's ever happened.
No, it hasn't. And actually, and then, regardless, we vote and then we move as one because our enemies are united as hell, even though there are deep divisions amongst them. Even later on, she was talking about it. And so, when she was thinking, there's a quote from her. She says, well, now I thought the CP was a wonderful vehicle, right? If they got a movement like that, they're conscious of this thing that Garvey had been speaking about, then this may be a good thing for me to, get in on to help free my people. And so wherever she went, she was driven by that. It didn't matter the organization, it didn't matter who was at the head of it or whatever, but how can I help my people?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And, throughout the time, of course, she
in the CP, she urged them to pay special attention to the problems of Black women, Negro women at the time. And she was also, on Benjamin Davis's, what do you call it? The campaign team.
Okay.
Benjamin Davis being the first communist city county councilor, New York City councilor in his election in 1943, that a Jewish person, it was a mainly Jewish area, but voluntarily gave up his appointment so that he could do it. So there were nonetheless, the CP sort of degrades. She goes back to New Orleans, right? And this is when the FBI really starts following her because, any affiliation with the CP, because that could have also been a reason why she left, was like, I got to duck down strategically so I can keep going, live to fight another day, 100%. And then what's interesting is when Garvey comes back up, right? So she starts an organization in the 1960s called the Universal Association of Ethiopian Women. And it was founded in Louisiana in response to cases of rape and other sexual violence against Black women. Through her work with this organization, I mean, they did pretty remarkable things, right? It was obviously women-led, but they would intervene and, protect women. There was, Garvey's influence was not just in the name, but also the principles, right? It was practical and theoretical. Like, she was like, at this time, Black women are pissed because they're letting the KKK run wild on us, right?
Yeah. Yep.
We should fight for constitutional rights and have independence, right? And they also fought to get African American men out of jail for, bogus rape charges against white women. And really, if you think about just a small cadre of women, were like a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then she, of course, went, she spent time in Ghana where she was given the name Queen.
Right.
Right. When she, and she was in many ways the one who shepherded also like Shirley Graham, but in a much more impactful way, I think, or a much more direct way, rather. When she returned to the U.S. from there, as like he says, they were sitting around there thinking, well, what should we call ourselves?
Right.
Because it's not just a name,
Yep.
And she was the one who was like, hold up, let's do some social investigation, right? So we are Africans because we came from Africa, of course, from different tribes, some of whom are at war with each other, right? Whatever. And spoke different languages, right? Africa's also a large continent. But through the common experience of the terroristic form of plantation slavery, chattel slavery, Jim Crow slavery, convict leasing, what goes on today under police lynchings, forged into a nation with a common territory, language, economy, customs, culture, tradition, way of singing, way of, moving, etc. Right? So a common, economy, right? Culture, customs, traditions, etc., and territory. And so that is why she got with the Obadeli brothers, and they convened the what was, ultimately a 2-day conference in that resulted in the formation of the Republic of New Africa. She was actually the first one to sign the Declaration of the Republic of New Africa. Yes. She, the first person elected was, I believe, Robert F. Williams, who was currently in exile at the time, who wrote Negroes with Guns. He was in China in exile at the time, so he's like the honorary president. But, she was the one who initiated that, like, let's study this, let's not, we're not, name is not a name. A name, like, not to get too much into the politics of language, because, people do that too much sometimes. Yeah. But like, because of the history and of Black oppression, African oppression in the U.S., absolutely, that's crucial.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, to Black people, to new African people, like, names mean something, right? Like, I mean, right? You can get into the history of like enslavement and literally our names being stripped away from us. And then after, once quote unquote slavery ended, like we take great pride in our names and what our names are, right? I remember having a conversation with my husband's grandfather before he died, and him telling me why they chose the name Abdullah, right? And why they wanted to be servants of God, right? Why that's important. My name is Danielle. That means God is my judge. Whenever my son gets in trouble, I'm always like, what does your name mean? Like, the great one. Are you being great right now? Right? Like, names are so important. Yeah. Names are so important. So, of course, that absolutely makes so much sense to me that they are like, we have to sit here and what is our name? Who are we? Right? And how revolutionary is that to sit and like, what are we going to call ourselves?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And again, that's a kind of why we want to do this, because we can't fight against something unless we understand it in precise terms.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, that's why the new Jim Crow doesn't cut it, right? Because it's not precise enough. Not because it's catchy. Yeah. And it's a good invitation to discussion, but we can't leave it there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, she was also a fervent fighter for reparations. And one of the last things I want to reflect on, though, she's Queen Mother. Right. And so there's this, you might think of her as a maternal figure. But what's interesting is, that many people didn't see her really as a feminist, in the sense of like nation building.
Okay.
For her included polygamy. And she would be like, this man right here, he deserves like 3 wives. Look at this hot young man down here. She was like 70 at the time, right? And so, like, whether or not that's patriarchal,
yeah.
I mean, it's, that's another question. But like, even if she's saying that in public addresses, right? Obviously, she is carrying herself. She is no like, domicile person.
No,
right?
not at all.
Her presence and her voice, like you just could, dominate the room. And she, was a great advisor to the Black nationalist, Pan-Africanist movement, including the the African People's Party and every group basically that sought her out, and was basically, I would sum it up as like, her ideology was revolutionary nationalism, internationalist Pan-Africanism, and Leninism, based on democratic centralism. And I just, I wasn't aware of how many people she was influenced by, and, left without like too many haters in the movement, which says something about the way that she moved.
It does. Yeah. Because, to get out of here, of course she has haters, but like to make it out with relatively few people, like, can't cuss on here. Relatively few people not like talking crap about you. I'll put it that way. I think just really goes to show like who she was and what she really brought to the table. And okay, sure, she's into polygamy, which like, I don't really care. But like we talked about this. I said this with like when we were talking about W.E. Du Bois last time, but like I think that really just like humanizes her, right? Like, we can have differences of opinions, right? Like at the end of the day, are you for the liberation of the people? Like that's what I care about, Yeah, what an amazing person. And like, and the term Queen Mother, that's something that like I've heard other quote unquote African Americans use for like, maternal figures in their family. Actually, my nephew, his grandmother, they call her Queen Mother as well. His, obviously not my mother. I'm talking about like on his mother's side. But just the idea that, first off, just being here for 100 years, you're organizing for 70 years. This was not planned, but I think it's so interesting that we both talked about women who had such long lives, right? Wintai Ben is still alive. and she'll be 100. But like these women had such long lives, and not only were they organizing and revolutionaries in their, you know, younger years, right? But they continued to be revolutionaries until like, and for her, until the day she died, right? Queen Mother did it until the day she died, and she was there to be a mentor to others, right? Which again can never be, that's irreplaceable, you know, to be able to have a conversation with somebody who has been organizing for 70 years, someone who is not only just organizing here in the States, but has gone to other places in the world and has gotten the title of Queen Mother is amazing. And, you know, people from the South, I'm a little biased because a lot of my family's from the South, but revolutionaries from the South, like, I mean, that in the United States, if you're living in the South, if you're organizing in the South, like you are like top tier, man. Like
ready for anything.
Yeah. You know, like it's, I mean, I feel like the South and the Midwest, I probably said this on here before, but like, I feel like the South and the Midwest of the United States are like that's where like a lot of the revolution happens. That's where you really get like these amazing leaders, because there's so much happening. There's so much, it's a nice way to put this. There's a lot of like messed up things that are happening, right? In those parts.
Yeah.
And for her to be living in the South during Jim Crow and organizing and saying like, yeah, we're being killed by the KKK. We are Black women. I think it was Claudia Jones and of course other revolutionaries, but like talked about, you know, in the United States, there is this like weird like stereotype that like Black men are like raping white women, right? But in reality, if you look at the history of this country, it has been Black women being raped and violated by white men, right? Like statistically speaking, if you're looking at this country, and
It's who owned who,
right? Exactly. Like what are we talking about?
Yeah.
What are we talking about? And so for her to like be in the South, you in New Orleans, and you're organizing, or you're in Louisiana, and you're organizing around this issue and around sexual violence and for Black women, not just Black women, but like you are organizing for Black women and with Black women, because you are literally being picked off as, wow,
Yeah.
amazing. What a
Yeah.
great choice. What
Thank
a great
you.
choice for you to talk about. Yeah.
I mean, and I had one other one, which picks off of it. This is a quick one, but which picks off of the fact that, like, you know, we tend to think of heroes as like you have to be dead, right? You have to have like accomplished some feat that is in a history book and that people study and that you can find various articles on, you know. But you know, as we were talking, and we were joking about this the other day, but I was thinking about, I was like, you know, I think Dani's one of my, you know, revolutionary women heroes for real, you know, because I see you coming and like, you know. We've been building together for like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Damn, we're just getting older and older. 6 years, you know, and I remember like the first, you know, class we had with you and the comrades and Stephen, and just like to, you know, we always want to recruit people better than us and different than us too. But to see that you've like just to watch you outdevelop me and outpace me and like, and other, you know, to just like blossom and to deal with all the, you know, I mean, one, I will say that anybody who is an activist and has kids is my hero, because I don't know how you do it. Like I struggle with 2 dogs. Yeah. You got like farm animals and shit too, don't you? Excuse
Oh
me.
my
But-
God. I have a turtle.
All right. Oh, not a chicken or something?
No, but I want a chicken.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
That's for another episode. But you know, it's like the everyday people, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you're not like trying to, you know, I mean, none of us are, but like get any glory out of this, right? Like you said, you know, the other day we were talking about like, yeah, like this is not my show. It's not Derek's show. It's not
Dakota's show or anybody. It's all our show, you know.
Yeah,
and so, you know, I just and the sacrifices that you've made in the struggle internally and also like with, you know, externally to advance the causes that we're fighting for. I know how, you know, I mean, I know in some sense how, you know, much of a sacrifice that is, and you just would take it on without, you know, because you had to. You felt this obligation. And, you know, like, I'd love to hear when you reflect on your conversations with Shaka about raising your, you know, new African boys. I look forward to skateboarding with them, you know, but I think that it's like, yeah, why can't our heroes be people that we know and look up to, you know, like, because you were here before me today. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just little things like that I think that we should like shout each other out for and like give props. Not that like, you know, I'm not worried about inflating your ego, right?
No.
I'm like, I'm doing it to be like, really to tell myself that, you know.
You're doing it to like
Dani.
you're
I'd be here for Dani, you know.
doing it to make me cry. No.
No, but yeah, no, I do think that is, I mean, I mean this sincerely, right?
Yeah.
The way that you're able to manage all the stuff, and not that like you're doing it on your own, you know.
Right.
Fortunately, I have a great comrade and husband, and dope children.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of which we don't necessarily look alike, but I guess we act alike a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. You and my 6-year-old.
So there was one time when Dani was like, I think she.
Oh my God. Go ahead.
I just love this story. It's so funny. But I'm pretty sure that you like yelled at me. You were like, Azim, quiet.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Well, yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Context.
I do. Yeah, I act just alike, which is so funny. Yeah, no, we do joke all the time that like Derek is my third child. But no, I appreciate that so much, comrade. That is like I wasn't joking when I was like, "Oh, you're trying to make me cry," but like that, I appreciate that a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. And I encourage all of us to look around our own lives and like, who do we look up to?
Absolutely.
Like what traits do they have that we look up to?
Yeah.
And how can we embody them to advance ourselves, make ourselves better people, make the struggle better, make the collective better?
Yeah.
You know,
this does remind me. I met Karina Garcia. She probably doesn't even remember me meeting her, but like, we had the Midwest Women's Conference, and I was like caring for her children, and I was like, I am caring for Karina Garcia's children right now. And she spoke, and she's brilliant, and she's amazing, and she's like not. I think she's a little older than me, but she's not 100 years old.
Yeah,
you know, like she's not even like 50 years old. She's a young revolutionary, and she's very much like my hero. She's one of my heroes.
Yeah, because I mean, if we only have heroes who are dead, who do we look to when we're in the struggle? Like when things get, you know, because we can't look back to what they did 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Well, thank you, Dani, for this. Thank you. I think the promise you set out at the beginning, I hope we delivered
I think we accomplished it. I'm hoping so.
I'm just going to say yes.
Yes.
We did.
Okay.
This has been a successful segment.
There we go.
No, thank you. And after a short break, we'll be right back with dispatches from behind the wire. And we're honored to be joined today by Jose Ortiz, who is calling us from Miami Correctional Facility. I put correctional in quotation marks there, to inform us about a really commonplace but really horrific and tragic medical neglect that he and several other inmates in the medical ward are facing. So welcome to the show first.
Hi.
And could you tell us and our listeners about exactly what you're facing and have been facing?
Like the neglect in here is like horrible. Like for a fact, we can't get out of bed because the Hoyer lift is broken. It's been broken for over a year, but they were taping it up. Like in the beginning of December, it finally just died, and they didn't want to work no more. So we sitting here in bed, can't get out of bed. There's about between 10 to 12 of us that depend on that Hoyer lift to get out of bed, to take showers. We can't take a shower. We can't go to rec. People are canceling their visits because they can't get out of bed. We can't go to religious services. They tell us they're getting one, and it's been months and months, and they still haven't fixed it or gotten another Hoyer lift.
You were able to visit with your friend Tanel recently, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we had a visit. We had a visit set up, and it got canceled. I mean, I was there a couple minutes late, but I mean, I believe it was canceled really because they couldn't get him out of bed.
Yeah.
So because of the lift, and they basically told me that and he didn't even realize the visit was set up at that time, that first time. But I did finally get to visit him the second time, but they, of the guards, my understanding, help him get out the bed.
Wow.
Which they wouldn't normally do because of the second time they come up there to visit about a month later.
Yeah, I forced that. I told them I wasn't going to cancel it. I knew that it was coming. So they had to figure a way to get me up. And they had to get like 4 people to get me out of bed, which it didn't go well. It was a struggle to get me out of bed. It wasn't easy. But that's not a way to get somebody out of bed.
No.
Basically drag them onto a chair. No, they should have the medical equipment that we need here. Like it's just not the Hoyer lift that they got messed up. It's the beds here don't work. A lot of them don't work. Some of them do, some of them don't. There's people that can't sit up. There's people that can't even sit up all the way.
Okay.
With a lot of these beds, the heads or the feet are nothing at all. They just dead. They don't even work on them.
And how many guys are you in there with?
The infirmary holds 28 people. And plus, we had a day room that we used to come out to, and they turned it in to the ICE for the ICE detainees if they come back here, and they put 4 beds in there. But there's no bathroom in there for them to use.
Oh, my God.
So they have to come in our rooms to use the bathrooms. Whenever they got to use the bathrooms, they can come out and use our bathrooms in our rooms.
Yeah. And are you able to use the bathroom? Is it a struggle? Do you have to?
Yeah, we have to use it in the bed.
Okay.
Because we can't get out of bed to do nothing.
Wow.
And it's not, it's like horrible.
That is terrible.
We don't get to do none of that. And then the other thing, they run out of medical supplies, like for people, pads or urinals. There's people here that they run out of like pads they put under people, wipes. Like they do this all the time, run out of medical supplies.
Yeah, which
Sometimes they go weeks without them.
Yeah, which no hospital does ever, no medical professional would ever do. That goes against their oath. And it leads to all sorts of problems. I mean, I can't imagine bed sores, infections.
Like sometimes people sit in there for hours and they sore with urine or poop. It cause bed sores, breakdowns, rashes. They smell because it just sticks to their body.
Yeah.
And they can't even, because the Hoyer lift is broken. I'm going to tell you the one thing.
All right.
There's people in this infirmary that are so bad, and like some of them are brain dead. Some of them can't get out of bed, don't know what's going on. They don't get no range of, we don't get no range of motion, no therapy. They just let them sit here like that.
And that seems to me like, okay, the story we're told about prisons, where you go to, be rehabilitated. But that's clearly not true because they're denying you even physical rehabilitation. And trust me, I don't believe you committed any real wrongdoing. I don't think you need to be rehabilitated in any other way. The story that's told to us is obviously a lie. And this just shows that to the extreme to me. Because if they can't take care of your body, how are they going to take care of your mind, your spirit, soul, everything else?
There's nothing for them to help us get through none of that. Like they're supposed to, help us change our life and become something different, but they don't give us programs. They let us sit here in these beds, stressed out. They come in here with attitudes and try to take it out on us and then just make us worse and more stressful. And if you say something back to them, we in the wrong for that. You know, they won't pay you no attention.
Yeah.
They'll neglect you even more. They'll retaliate against you if you write them up. And it's just, man, it's sad.
Yeah. It's
Well, yes, just even I wanted to add that.
What goes on.
I want to add, even just when I tried to email my friend to the prison, just using the words ICE in certain words, the emails get blocked, and it put up like an investigative report on my screen because I used those words to tell them about this phone call, which I find that even crazy that would happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's censorship, and you know,
Yeah, they look for certain words.
I mean, you mentioned that the people are brought in, you know, through that agency, which is, you know, I can't imagine an agency worse than the cops, but that's them. You know, more violent and brutal. But you know, how are your interactions with them? I mean, do you let them use your restrooms, or is there animosity? Is there a solidarity?
Oh no. They when they come back here and they come in to use the bathroom. They say we're not allowed to talk to them because they detainees and we committed a crime and they didn't. So they try not to let us talk to them, but we still do.
Uh-huh.
And we conversate normal. You know, a lot of them been here for 20-some years, never committed a crime.
Oh, my God.
And they're in here.
Wow. And
like there was a detainee that died here not that long ago, and he died of a heart attack or something. They found him in the cell, but as soon as he died, they made a big scene about it, started firing people and blaming people for it.
Right.
But the same reason he died is because the same reason we get treated. And there's hundreds of other people that done died before him for the same reason of medical neglect. And now just because a detainee, you happen with a detainee, now they want to make a scene about it. But what about all them other inmates that came complaining about their heart or their chest, and they send them back to their dorm talking about it's just heartburn?
Exactly. And so that's why when I read and they say, oh, we determined it was natural causes. No, it wasn't. You know, you made it. You produced the conditions that caused that to happen through this neglect.
Exactly. Neglect. And it's real bad about that. If you complain about something, oh, nothing's wrong. I'm going to use this for example. Last year in April, I started getting real sick. I was sweating real bad. And I laid here for about 3 weeks, sweating real bad, couldn't eat. I couldn't use the bathroom. I didn't use the bathroom for 17 days.
Oh, my God.
And then they shipped me out on April 28th. They found out that I had a blood infection and a spinal cord infection. And I didn't use the bathroom for 17 days. I had a blood rupture. So I sat here for 3 weeks in my bed before y'all even thought about sending me to the hospital. Yeah, and then I went to the hospital. I was in IU for 9 days.
Yeah.
And then I went back again for a week. It's like whatever you say to them was like we lying about something. And the neglect around here is just overwhelming. You know, we try to do something about it. They retaliate against us.
Yeah.
And they'll do it even worse. They won't pay attention to you.
And it seems like if anybody's lying, it's them.
And they try to cover things up like it's nothing. And it's just like somebody has to do something about this because I don't want somebody in my room being another victim to their medical neglect or dying for no reason. done something. People getting infections from sitting in their stool, getting rashes and bed sores.
Right.
You know, and then the medication around here, they run out of our medications all the time.
Yeah.
And then we go days without our medications.
I mean, and this is an epidemic. I mean, in May, we were working with actually somebody who you might know at Miami CF and his family because they wouldn't get him out. One, they let him get disabled in prison. And then two, the captains basically told the nurses to ignore him, So we had to do a phone zap, which we will be asking our listeners to do on your behalf, because it's clearly not an isolated incident. Here we have, this one incident. Now we have another one. And previously he also said, yeah, it's not just me. There's other people here too. And what is interesting is that you care about your fellow inmates. It sounds like you care about your fellow inmates and your fellow human being more than the guards and the COs do.
Yes, I agree too. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, we have to be like that because if not, nobody else is going to take care of me or the fellow inmates in here.
Yeah.
Incarcerated individuals, whatever they want to call us. But we all humans.
Yes.
And nobody deserves to be treated like this.
No.
And people sitting in here the way they are, I'll tell you, they shouldn't be there's guys in here that shouldn't even be here no more. They're not threat to society. They can't even get out of bed. Some people can't even talk from having strokes, from being still in here being neglected, getting treated like this.
Yeah.
It's a bad situation.
I don't even know how these people sleep at night, just that kind of callousness toward your fellow human. I wanted to ask, how many times have you been out of bed? Like, you haven't been on a Hoyt lift in, over a year? Like, properly gotten out of bed?
Well, it's been since, November, I think it was.
Jeez.
But there's some people in here that haven't get out of bed in over a year. They just don't pay them no attention. If you don't say nothing to them, they're not going to do it. And then the head administrator, the head boss, will come through here and tell them to do something. And then she's going to check up on it, make sure she does it. But she just does it to make it look good. They don't do it, and she never comes back.
That's why we need to be having these conversations with people on the inside and building ties between those on the inside and the outside, because they like to think of you as their little, almost like captives, right?
Yeah.
Unless there's outside eyes on them and unless there's people on the outside who are, who know what's going on and are saying, no, I'm not going to let you treat this man this way, right? And I'm going to do what I need to do until you start treating him like a human being. And there's a lot of people out there like that. They try to, present a picture where we're all, we don't care about each other, but we do, And so that's why I also got to say I commend you for speaking up about it, because, that's also a good form of protection. It's risky, but now you're going to have a lot of people who got your back and who know your name and who are going to follow up with you and who are going to follow up with the authorities about you to make sure you're okay.
We appreciate that.
And yeah.
In the medical ways, they're supposed to come in and turn these guys every 2 hours from side to side to keep them from getting sores. Look, the ones that can talk ask to get turned, and they get an argument about it. They might get turned maybe once or twice a day, and nobody else. But that's the ones that can talk. The ones that can't talk for themselves are stuck laying on their back. It's horrible. If they were to give if y'all was to come in here and see this stuff, you'll be like, this is sad.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And like this, like I don't really care if they find out my name and everything. They can come say whatever they want and do whatever they want, but they know they're in the wrong for everything they're doing.
That's right.
Because if we do file grievances and we put paperwork on them, they want to retaliate against us. They want to be like, oh, he's trouble. Don't go in there. Talk to him. He's going to start trouble with you. That's how they start. That's how they try to keep away from doing that for anybody. They try to make it seem like we're trouble or no, we just asking y'all to do your job.
Exactly.
You're here 12 hours a day and they don't want to do nothing but sit out there and talk.
Follow your own procedures. That's it. Follow your own procedures.
Sure.
They're not even doing, like, if I went to my job every day and didn't do anything, I would be fired. But they can do that and they don't follow anything and they just come back the next day and the next day.
Not here. What they do is, long as they got on paper that there was a CNA and a nurse on the floor, they doing their job.
Yeah.
That's all they really doing. Long as they got somebody on shift, they doing their job.
I got a
Tonight
pause.
On night shift, they won't have no CNA.
Really?
So these guys are going to sit in the urine until a CNA comes in tomorrow. And they stool. If they have a bowel movement, they're going to sit in it. You know, so the little guy next to me, he can't speak. He got brain damage. He's all messed up.
Mm-hmm.
He'll sit in his urine until tomorrow morning till another CNA come in. They just sit here and not do nothing. I'm looking at them right now. They're over there just talking on the computer.
We're going to follow up on this. All right? Yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. We really appreciate it. And salute you for speaking out.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're back with Naptown People's Radio. Hopefully everybody appreciated that segment of Dispatches from Behind the Wire. Be sure to take the action steps. I said it earlier in the episode, but, you know, this podcast is not just for you to like listen to and be like, oh my gosh, that was great. And then, you know, never think about it again. Or we want you to go out and talk about what you learned. Please go out and tell other people what was discussed here today, because that is also helping build the revolution as well. So yeah, Derek, what's going on this week at the ILC?
All right, couple of things. So I did give our listeners a heads up that Wednesday at 6 to 8 p.m. is our monthly Liberation Forum. This one, it being International Women's History Month and all, is titled War is a Women's Issue at Home and Abroad. We'll be speaking about the ongoing war, illegal, unconstitutional, immoral, unjust, you name it, deadly war against Iran that the U.S. continues to wage, even though they continue to suffer casualties. Trying to dig to like what's the real issue at hand, because it's not nobody goes to war to go to war, right?
Right.
So it's a real issue at hand. How is it a women's issue, right? And then we're also going to be uncovering the real history of the ongoing women's liberation movement in the U.S., which is so often caricatured as, it wasn't until like 1994 that Black women got involved in it. Like,
yeah.
As if, I mean, really the Black liberation struggle is the like impetus for all other struggles.
Yeah.
The women's suffragette struggle. That wouldn't happen without the abolitionist struggle, right? The environmentalists, et cetera. So we're going to be correcting some of that history and then, tying them together. And then most importantly, as we always do, right, we think, act, think, reflect. Mm-hmm. And so, we've acted. And so now is the time for us to come together, collectively think and reflect so that we can strategize as to how to keep the movement moving forward in Indy and statewide. Thursday, March 26th at 1 p.m. Join Hope Packages for their monthly distribution where we, distribute the Hope Packages we assembled this week and talk to organizers, community members, our homeless neighbors to connect the ways they try to divide us and forge solidarity to struggle for a transformed city. And then we have our routine events going on. Of course, Saturday morning, Circle City Sangha, 9:30 to 11. Sunday, 6 to 8 p.m., Emancipatory Motions, Yoga for Liberation, that's 6 to 8 p.m. again. We have the bookstore is open Thursday through Sunday. On Saturday at 1 p.m. will be the second part of our study of Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And this is the first meeting that will discuss the reading itself. The first was last week's was kind of like an introductory session. So we hope to see you there. Any edition of the book will do. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, go to indieliberationcenter.org and just, all we need is your first, last name, and your email address. We send it out once a week on Tuesdays. Maybe in an emergency, we'll send you 2 a week, but it's nothing like we won't spam you, we promise. If you have an idea, come to the center, bring it to us. Let's make it happen. All right? That's it for this episode of Naptown People's Radio. If you found today's discussion useful, pass it on, leave a comment, or show some love by donating at support.pslindianapolis.org and by shopping at indieliberationstore.com or coming in. The road ahead is long, but we walk it together. Study with your comrades, build with your community, and always remember, theory without action is paralysis, but action without theory is chaos. Once again, I'm your host, Derek Ford, here with my comrade and co-host,
Dani Abdullah.
Stay dangerous, stay disciplined, and stay in the struggle.
We say all power to the people. That means that we are our own liberators. We don't depend on nobody else. We depend on ourselves. And we take responsibility for ourselves. And therefore, we step up for our organization. Those that have proven by their actions and their practice that they represent for us. All power to the people and peace.
Collaboration. Like, we act as if there's a scarcity of rights. If gay people get rights, women can't have rights. But that's not true. A victory for one is a victory for all. As Dan is saying, And
you talk about people being fearless in the face of whoever there is. They don't care. To the Liberation Center, I would say, this is what we need.